IMF's engagement with Senegal, amid debt and deficit misreporting, a comprehensive analysis. Welcome to The Bold African Voice, BAV, where we bring you comprehensive insights, critical analysis, and a forward-looking approach to Africa's most pressing issues. I'm Abdul Karim Kargbo, born and raised in Africa. In today's video, we explore the ongoing engagement between Senegal and the IMF concerning the country's debt crisis and fiscal misreporting. How will Senegal navigate this challenge, and what does this mean for the broader African context? Let's dive in. In early February 2025, the International Monetary Fund, IMF, confirmed its active engagement with the Senegalese government following the suspension of its financing program. This suspension was prompted by a government audit that revealed significantly higher debt and deficit figures than those reported by the previous administration. IMF spokesperson Julie Kozak stated that Senegal's Court of Auditors is expected to issue its final report within the month, and IMF staff are collaborating with Senegalese authorities to identify capacity development needs and implement corrective measures. Audit findings and fiscal implications. An audit commissioned by President Bassirou Diomaye Faye's administration uncovered that the fiscal deficit at the end of 2023 stood at over 10% of gross domestic product, GDP, a substantial increase from the approximately 5% reported by the previous government. Additionally, public debt averaged 76.3% of GDP over the past 5 years, up from the previously reported 65.9%. These discrepancies have led to significant economic repercussions, including credit rating downgrades and increased yields on Senegal's international bonds. The IMF has suspended disbursements under the existing $1.9 billion program, agreed upon in June 2023, pending resolution of these fiscal issues. IMF's role and future outlook. The IMF's involvement is crucial in assisting Senegal to navigate these fiscal challenges. The organization is working closely with Senegalese authorities to implement corrective measures and enhance fiscal transparency. The final audit report from the Court of Auditors, expected in mid-December 2024, is anticipated to lead to upward revisions of outstanding debt and debt service projections for 2024 and 2025. Looking ahead, Senegal plans to negotiate repayment terms with investors to spread out payments and make debt management more sustainable. The government also aims to develop domestic financing, including a potential $41 billion diaspora bond market to support its fiscal needs. Comparative analysis. Africa-wide context. Senegal's fiscal challenges are not unique within the African continent. Several African nations have faced similar issues of debt misreporting and fiscal mismanagement, leading to strained relations with international financial institutions. For instance, Mozambique encountered a significant debt crisis in 2016 when it was revealed that the government had concealed over $1 billion in loans, leading to the suspension of IMF support and a severe economic downturn. These instances underscore the critical importance of fiscal transparency and accurate reporting in maintaining investor confidence and securing international financial support. The IMF's role in assisting countries to rectify fiscal discrepancies and implement sound economic policies is vital for the stability and growth of African economies. Senegal's engagement with the IMF, following the revelation of significant fiscal discrepancies, highlights the challenges and complexities of managing public finances in the context of political transitions. The ongoing collaboration between Senegalese authorities and the IMF is essential in implementing corrective measures, restoring fiscal stability, and ensuring sustainable economic growth. The outcomes of this engagement will serve as a critical case study for other African nations grappling with similar fiscal challenges. The role of IMF in addressing debt and deficit discrepancies. As Senegal grapples with the implications of the debt misreporting scandal, it is important to understand the broader context in which the IMF's intervention is taking place. While the IMF's role in Senegal remains a focal point, it is important to analyze the larger picture across Africa, where fiscal mismanagement and debt sustainability continue to be key challenges for many governments. Broader implications for Africa's debt landscape. Debt misreporting and poor fiscal management have been recurring issues across many African nations in the past decade. The African continent's total debt has skyrocketed in recent years, driven by infrastructure projects, government spending, and the pandemic-induced economic strain. In 2024, the total external debt in sub-Saharan Africa was estimated to be over $800 billion, and many countries have found themselves under severe pressure to service these debts, while also trying to stimulate growth and development. This growing debt crisis in Africa highlights the significant role of the IMF, the World Bank, and other financial institutions in ensuring fiscal discipline among African governments. The IMF's engagement with Senegal could act as a model for other African countries facing similar crises. However, the IMF's actions in Senegal also raise the question of whether such institutions are too slow in addressing these issues, particularly when governments do not adhere to transparency standards or make substantial efforts to correct fiscal discrepancies. The IMF and long-term economic growth in Senegal. Looking beyond the immediate fiscal measures, it is also essential to consider the long-term impact that the IMF's engagement might have on Senegal's economy. The suspension of financing programs and the potential revisions of debt and deficit projections will likely delay major infrastructure projects and social programs, which could slow economic growth. However, the implementation of corrective measures is essential for ensuring that Senegal's economic fundamentals are aligned with sustainable development goals. In the long run, a more transparent and disciplined fiscal policy could lead to stronger investor confidence, improved credit ratings, and access to better financing options. Such improvements could help bolster Senegal's economy, attract more foreign direct investment, and stimulate private sector growth. Lessons learned from Africa's debt challenges. A comparative approach. In comparing Senegal's situation to other African nations, we can see that debt mismanagement and fiscal discrepancies are not isolated incidents. For example, countries like Ghana and Zambia have experienced similar challenges, leading to IMF interventions. Ghana, which entered an IMF program in 2023, faced significant public debt and fiscal deficits that required external assistance to stabilize the economy. Similarly, Zambia's debt restructuring in 2022 underscored the complex issue of debt sustainability and the importance of transparent reporting and efficient debt management. BBC.com. These cases highlight the similarities and common challenges that many African nations face in their efforts to balance fiscal responsibility with the need for rapid economic development. The IMF's interventions in these cases are often seen as critical in restoring fiscal stability, but they also expose the underlying issues of governance, accountability, and political will in addressing these concerns. Forward-looking approaches. Strengthening fiscal systems and capacity building. To prevent further debt crises and misreporting, African governments must prioritize fiscal transparency, strengthen auditing mechanisms, and develop institutional frameworks that support good governance. Senegal's case offers a roadmap for other nations looking to improve their debt management strategies. The establishment of more robust auditing bodies, combined with greater engagement with international financial institutions, will be key in ensuring that African economies are better equipped to handle the complexities of debt management in the future. In addition to these immediate steps, there is a need for African governments to develop more sophisticated capacity-building initiatives that can help local institutions better manage fiscal policies, reduce corruption, and enhance public financial management. As Senegal works to implement the corrective measures identified by the IMF, these long-term reforms could set the stage for a more sustainable economic future. A path forward for Senegal and Africa. Senegal's engagement with the IMF serves as a cautionary tale for other African nations grappling with debt management challenges. It underscores the need for transparency, accuracy in fiscal reporting, and the importance of proactive steps to prevent fiscal mismanagement. The road ahead for Senegal will require careful balancing between implementing corrective measures and fostering economic growth. But with the support of international financial institutions like the IMF, the country has the potential to stabilize its fiscal environment and emerge stronger. However, the broader African context indicates that Senegal is not alone in this journey. Other nations facing similar challenges must look to Senegal's experience, as well as the lessons learned from other African countries, to strengthen their own fiscal governance frameworks. The story of Senegal and its ongoing fiscal reform will continue to unfold, with significant lessons to be drawn for Africa's future debt and economic management. It's clear that the continent's economic trajectory will depend largely on governments' ability to address these fiscal challenges, foster good governance, and build robust financial institutions that can withstand the pressures of global economic shifts. The way forward for Senegal and Africa. While Senegal's fiscal challenges provide a critical insight into the country's economic management, the broader issue of debt sustainability is of paramount importance for the entire African continent. As Senegal collaborates with the IMF to address its fiscal discrepancies, the international community must consider the broader long-term reforms needed to tackle Africa's debt problems, global economic dynamics, and their impact on African debt. The global economic landscape plays a significant role in shaping the economic and debt management strategies of African nations. Global inflationary pressures, fluctuating commodity prices, and the ongoing geopolitical uncertainties have a direct impact on Africa's ability to service its debt. For example, in 2024, oil prices saw a sharp increase due to geopolitical tensions, which impacted African countries heavily reliant on oil exports for revenue. This disruption increased the debt burden for nations like Angola and Nigeria, where a substantial portion of public revenues is derived from oil. Additionally, the COVID-19 pandemic left many African governments in a precarious position, exacerbating fiscal deficits and increasing public borrowing. The IMF and World Bank responded with emergency lending facilities, but these loans came with conditions, including stringent fiscal consolidation measures. The challenge for countries like Senegal is balancing fiscal reforms with the urgent need to finance development projects and stimulate economic growth. Debt sustainability frameworks. A call for stronger African institutions. One of the critical steps in addressing Africa's debt challenges is the creation of sustainable debt management frameworks. These frameworks must be designed with flexibility to accommodate the specific economic conditions of each country while ensuring that future borrowing does not lead to unmanageable debt burdens. In Senegal's case, an audit process initiated by the current administration provides a pathway for rectifying fiscal mismanagement, but it also exposes a need for structural reforms in how public debt is monitored and managed. The IMF's involvement in strengthening Senegal's fiscal capacity is vital in ensuring that such issues do not resurface. Going forward, African nations must not only focus on external borrowing, but also develop domestic financial markets that can support sustainable debt management. Building stronger local capital markets, such as the introduction of diaspora bonds or enhancing local bond markets, is crucial for reducing dependency on foreign loans, which are often subject to the volatility of global financial markets. Senegal, for example, is exploring this avenue with the potential launch of a $2.41 billion diaspora bond market. If successful, this could set a model for other African nations to follow. Reuters. Building resilience to external shocks beyond improving fiscal governance, African countries must also prioritize building economic resilience to external shocks. Countries like Senegal, that are highly dependent on global markets for exports, must diversify their economies to reduce vulnerability. This includes investing in sectors such as agriculture, renewable energy, and technology, which can generate revenue and employment opportunities while shielding economies from global volatility. Senegal's focus on diversifying its energy sector is an example of this strategic shift. The government has been working to tap into its solar and wind energy potential, which not only helps reduce the dependence on costly imported fossil fuels, but also positions Senegal as a potential leader in clean energy in West Africa. A diversified economy will enable Senegal to cushion itself from shocks, such as fluctuating oil prices or international trade disruptions. By positioning itself as an economic hub for renewable energy, Senegal can also attract foreign investment, providing a much-needed boost to its fiscal position. Regional cooperation and shared solutions. Debt and fiscal challenges are not isolated to Senegal, but affect many countries across the African continent. In response, regional cooperation is increasingly important. The African Union, AU, and the African Development Bank, AFDB, must play a more proactive role in facilitating regional approaches to debt management. In the case of countries like Senegal, which are part of the West African Economic and Monetary Union, WAEMU, sharing fiscal information, best practices, and coordinating borrowing policies could help stabilize the region's finances. The AFDB has already been instrumental in helping member countries access concessional financing and providing technical assistance for debt management. However, more needs to be done in terms of regional economic integration to reduce reliance on external debt and enhance the financial independence of African countries. The AFDB's recent push to promote regional financial markets and boost intra-Africa trade should be supported with greater urgency to help African countries secure more sustainable financial futures. The role of leadership in debt management. Ultimately, the success of any fiscal reform, including debt management, relies on strong leadership within each country. Senegal's new leadership has shown a commitment to fiscal transparency, but political will is crucial in driving the reforms necessary to improve economic management. For this reason, Africa's leaders must be held accountable for not just making promises, but taking real action to implement reforms, fight corruption, and reduce fiscal mismanagement. The ongoing efforts in Senegal to address fiscal misreporting and implement corrective measures should serve as a lesson to other African nations. It is clear that transparent fiscal practices, coupled with effective economic policies, will be essential in restoring investor confidence and ensuring long-term economic growth. Africa's economic future depends on its leaders' ability to take bold steps toward fiscal responsibility and accountability, all while ensuring that their citizens benefit from economic progress. The need for long-term fiscal reforms and institutional strengthening. As African countries, including Senegal, continue to work on fiscal reforms, it is essential to adopt long-term strategies that foster institutional capacity building and robust governance systems. While temporary measures and immediate corrections to fiscal discrepancies, like those being implemented in Senegal, are crucial, the focus must shift towards developing sustainable systems that can mitigate future risks of debt misreporting and fiscal mismanagement. A long-term fiscal reform agenda should prioritize strengthening public financial management, PFM systems across the continent. This involves improving the capacity of national audit offices, ministries of finance, and central banks to ensure transparency, accountability, and compliance with international standards. A key component of such reforms should include establishing integrated financial management information systems, IFMIS, to monitor government spending and revenue collection in real time. This can help detect any irregularities before they become systemic issues, thereby preventing larger fiscal crises. In Senegal's case, implementing a comprehensive PFM reform, supported by technical assistance from international financial institutions, will be critical in preventing similar misreporting in the future. The Senegalese government must also work closely with civil society organizations to promote accountability and enhance public oversight of fiscal policies. These organizations can play a crucial role in ensuring that reforms are implemented effectively and that the public remains informed about the government's fiscal health. Sustainable debt management strategies for Africa. Looking beyond Senegal's immediate challenges, Africa as a whole must rethink its debt strategy to achieve long-term economic sustainability. While borrowing remains an essential tool for financing infrastructure projects, there is a growing need to focus on debt sustainability rather than sheer borrowing capacity. The IMF and the World Bank have stressed the importance of debt sustainability assessments, DSAs, that take into account not just the ability of countries to service their debt, but also their vulnerability to external shocks and their capacity to implement critical development projects. African countries must develop a more balanced debt portfolio, which could include a combination of concessional loans, non-concessional borrowing, and domestic financing. Furthermore, more attention should be paid to the terms and conditions of loans, with an emphasis on ensuring that borrowing does not put excessive strain on fiscal space. Senegal, for instance, could consider diversifying its creditors and seeking financing from institutions such as the African Development Bank, AFDB, which provides loans at more favorable terms than commercial lenders. This could help reduce the overall cost of borrowing and ease the pressure on Senegal's fiscal position. The importance of diversification in the African economy. Economic diversification is another key element that can help African countries better manage debt and fiscal risks. As seen with Senegal's efforts to tap into renewable energy markets, diversification can reduce reliance on external factors like commodity price fluctuations, which are often beyond the control of African governments. By fostering innovation and investing in emerging sectors such as technology, agriculture, and clean energy, African nations can increase their economic resilience and create more sustainable sources of revenue. For Senegal, further diversification into industries like tourism, agriculture, and services could also enhance its revenue base. Senegal's thriving tourism sector, which attracts millions of visitors every year, holds significant potential for growth. The government could build on its existing strengths by investing in infrastructure to improve connectivity and services in tourist hotspots, which would not only generate revenue, but also create jobs for the population. Africa's regional approach, shared solutions for collective growth. To truly address debt sustainability challenges across the continent, regional cooperation must become a central pillar of Africa's economic strategy. As many African countries face similar fiscal pressures, the need for a coordinated regional approach to managing debt and achieving economic stability is paramount. Senegal's position within the West African Economic and Monetary Union, WAEMU, provides a platform for the country to collaborate with other nations in the region to share knowledge, adopt best practices, and collectively strengthen debt management systems. By pooling resources and expertise, countries can work together to mitigate risks and build stronger, more resilient economies. Furthermore, the African Union, AU, and the AFDB have a critical role to play in promoting regional financial integration. Encouraging the free movement of capital and goods within Africa can reduce reliance on external debt and stimulate intra-Africa trade, which is currently underdeveloped. The African Continental Free Trade Area, AFCFTA, launched in 2021, offers significant potential for economic integration, but its success will depend on the ability of African nations to address their debt vulnerabilities and foster greater cooperation. The AFCFTA could become a catalyst for economic growth, provided that African countries work together to ensure that their fiscal systems are robust enough to support regional economic collaboration. A comprehensive path forward for Senegal and Africa. Senegal's current fiscal challenges serve as an important reminder of the delicate balance that African nations must strike between borrowing for development and managing debt sustainably. The ongoing collaboration between Senegal and the IMF to address fiscal misreporting is a crucial first step in correcting the country's economic course, but it must be followed by comprehensive reforms aimed at strengthening fiscal institutions, diversifying the economy, and building resilience to external shocks. In the broader African context, Senegal's experience highlights the need for greater regional cooperation, stronger fiscal governance, and enhanced debt management frameworks across the continent. By learning from Senegal's efforts and the challenges faced by other African nations, governments can develop more effective strategies to address their fiscal challenges and position their economies for long-term growth and stability. As African nations continue to navigate the complexities of economic development, the role of international financial institutions like the IMF will remain critical. However, it is equally important for African leaders to take ownership of their fiscal policies, invest in institutional capacity, and adopt forward-looking approaches that prioritize sustainable development. The future of Africa's economic landscape will depend on its ability to balance growth with fiscal responsibility, ensuring that the continent's resources are managed effectively for the benefit of all its citizens. Long-term solutions for debt and economic stability in Africa. To sustain Africa's development and avoid further debt crises like those currently unfolding in Senegal, the continent needs to embrace a more comprehensive approach to economic governance. While short-term solutions such as IMF engagement and fiscal corrections are important, the long-term health of African economies will depend on tackling structural challenges and fostering sustainable economic models. By addressing these issues head-on, African nations can build more robust economies capable of withstanding external shocks. Fiscal discipline and accountability. One of the fundamental changes that must occur across Africa is the embedding of fiscal discipline in the governance structures of each country. Senegal's fiscal misreporting, like similar cases in other African nations, is symptomatic of broader institutional weaknesses in financial management and accountability. African governments must invest in strengthening their auditing systems, enhance transparency in public spending, and enforce accountability at all levels of government. Fiscal discipline is not solely about keeping expenditures within the limits of revenue. It is also about making strategic choices about how government spending is allocated. Senegal's increased public debt highlights the consequences of imprudent borrowing and excessive reliance on external lenders, particularly when fiscal projects do not yield immediate or sustainable returns. By focusing on domestic revenue generation and improving efficiency in the use of public resources, African countries can reduce their vulnerability to external shocks and mitigate the risks associated with heavy foreign debt. Technological innovation and economic diversification. Beyond fiscal management, another key to ensuring sustainable economic growth in Africa is the promotion of technological innovation and economic diversification. Relying on a narrow economic base, such as commodities or a few key sectors, leaves African countries vulnerable to price volatility in global markets. For Senegal, diversifying into sectors like technology, finance, agriculture, and clean energy could serve as the foundation for long-term economic resilience. The government's efforts to develop renewable energy resources in the form of wind and solar power are steps in the right direction, as these industries promise both environmental sustainability and economic growth. Furthermore, fostering a digital economy can offer immense benefits for countries like Senegal, especially in sectors like e-commerce, fintech, and mobile banking. Senegal has made strides in mobile money services, and expanding this model could significantly boost financial inclusion, creating new economic opportunities for millions of citizens. By investing in digital infrastructure and supporting innovation ecosystems, African governments can unlock new sources of economic growth and reduce dependency on traditional sectors. Investment in education and skills development. To ensure that the young and dynamic populations across Africa can participate fully in a diversified economy, governments must prioritize investment in education and skills development. Education and vocational training are crucial for equipping the next generation with the skills necessary to thrive in an increasingly digital and globalized economy. In Senegal, a focus on science, technology, engineering, and mathematics, STEM education, along with fostering entrepreneurship and innovation, will be essential for creating a competitive and adaptable workforce. Investing in education is not just about providing basic schooling, it is also about creating a system that prepares young people for the challenges of a rapidly evolving economy. Vocational training plays an important role in equipping individuals with practical skills that can drive industrialization, support emerging sectors, and encourage entrepreneurship. African governments should also consider expanding access to higher education and research institutions, which can further develop knowledge economies that foster innovation and attract foreign investment. The role of African institutions and regional integration. To ensure that national efforts align with regional goals, African institutions such as the African Union, AU, The African Development Bank, AFDB, and regional economic communities must provide guidance and coordination on the continent's economic strategies. As the cases of Senegal, Ghana, and Zambia illustrate, fiscal issues are often not confined to one country, but are part of larger regional challenges. It is vital that African countries work together to create and implement solutions that promote shared growth and reduce vulnerabilities. Regional integration can lead to more efficient resource use, greater economic cooperation, and a stronger collective voice in the global market. The African Continental Free Trade Area, AfCFTA agreement, is one example of a regional strategy that could transform Africa's economic prospects by promoting intra-Africa trade and reducing dependency on external markets. For countries like Senegal, participating in regional initiatives and working together with neighbors can facilitate infrastructure development, improve cross-border trade, and provide opportunities for economic collaboration. The role of global partners and multilateral institutions. While Africa's self-reliance is crucial, it is also important to recognize the role of global partners and multilateral institutions, such as the IMF and the World Bank, in supporting the continent's development. These institutions can play a positive role in helping African countries address their debt challenges through technical assistance, capacity building, and financial support. However, it is essential that Africa's engagement with these institutions is shaped by a vision of long-term sustainability and greater autonomy. The IMF, for instance, has been instrumental in supporting countries like Senegal by providing technical assistance and policy guidance. However, it is essential that the relationship between African governments and multilateral financial institutions evolves into one of partnership, where the emphasis is placed not just on short-term fixes, but on long-term structural reforms that empower African countries to achieve sustainable development without excessive reliance on foreign debt. The path to Africa's future economic growth. The road to economic growth and stability in Africa requires bold leadership, comprehensive reform, and a deep commitment to building a diversified, resilient economy. While Senegal is currently facing fiscal challenges, the country's engagement with the IMF provides an opportunity to reset its economic trajectory, implementing critical reforms that can strengthen its financial systems, promote transparency, and stimulate sustainable growth. As Senegal and other African nations continue their efforts to balance debt management with development, it is crucial that both the governments and international partners work together to build a future in which African economies are less vulnerable to external shocks, more inclusive, and more diversified. Africa's future will depend on its ability to harness its human and natural resources, invest in technological innovation, and build strong, transparent institutions capable of managing its economic and fiscal challenges. By aligning national and regional efforts, improving fiscal governance, and promoting long-term investment in education, technology, and infrastructure, African nations can unlock their full economic potential and pave the way for a more prosperous future. The lessons learned from Senegal's current fiscal challenges will likely serve as a guide for the rest of Africa as it strives for economic sustainability and resilience. The next steps for Senegal and Africa as a whole will be decisive in determining the continent's future trajectory in the global economy. Strengthening Africa's economic institutions and governance. As the African continent moves forward with the task of improving its fiscal governance and debt sustainability, the need for stronger economic institutions becomes even more urgent. African nations must take decisive steps to build institutions that can effectively manage public finances, promote transparency, and ensure that economic policies are aligned with long-term development goals. This involves strengthening national audit offices, ministries of finance, and central banks to enhance their capacity to track public debt and spending. For countries like Senegal, the process of rebuilding and enhancing these institutions will require sustained political will and commitment from both government officials and civil society. Strengthening public financial management systems, adopting international best practices in fiscal transparency, and establishing independent auditing bodies are key measures that will ensure future fiscal misreporting does not occur. It's also critical that African nations invest in capacity building at the local level so that regional and district offices can play a stronger role in monitoring and managing public resources. This will help to bring government actions closer to the people and improve accountability. Public debt and the importance of domestic resources. While external financing has long been a pillar of Africa's development strategy, the continent must diversify its sources of funding. Relying too heavily on external loans and aid places African nations at the mercy of global financial markets, which are often volatile and subject to geopolitical risks. Considering the current global economic uncertainty, African countries must focus more on tapping into their domestic resources, such as local bond markets, taxes, and remittances, to finance their development plans. For Senegal, this could mean prioritizing domestic financing options and creating a more favorable environment for private sector investment. The development of robust local financial markets will reduce dependency on foreign debt, mitigate risks related to currency fluctuations, and improve access to long-term financing at lower interest rates. Senegal's potential diaspora bond market could serve as a model for other countries seeking to tap into their overseas communities as a source of funding for critical infrastructure projects. By offering favorable terms and creating attractive investment opportunities, African governments can encourage their diaspora communities to contribute to national development. The role of technology and innovation in economic growth. As Africa seeks to diversify its economy and reduce dependency on traditional sectors, technology and innovation will play an increasingly vital role. Senegal's growing digital economy offers a glimpse of how the continent can leverage new technologies to unlock new sources of growth. The African digital economy, currently valued at over $115 billion, has the potential to be a transformative force for economic development. With the rise of mobile money platforms, e-commerce, and digital financial services, the tech sector is becoming a key driver of economic growth and financial inclusion. African governments must, therefore, invest in digital infrastructure, create an enabling environment for startups, and enhance access to education and skills training in fields like software development, data science, and digital marketing. By supporting innovation hubs and fostering a culture of entrepreneurship, governments can encourage the growth of homegrown tech solutions that address local challenges. Senegal has shown promise with its burgeoning fintech sector, which has attracted international interest and investment. Expanding these efforts could help create new jobs, improve financial access, and contribute significantly to the country's GDP. Regional economic integration, a unified approach to Africa's challenges. Regional integration will also play a pivotal role in addressing Africa's fiscal and debt challenges. Senegal's engagement in regional organizations like the West African Economic and Monetary Union, WAEMU, and the Economic Community of West African States, ECOWS, provides an opportunity to collaborate with neighboring countries on shared economic goals. Regional integration can offer significant benefits, including improved access to markets, better infrastructure development, and enhanced coordination in managing regional public debt. Senegal's position within the West African region is strategic. By fostering greater cooperation with regional partners, Senegal can create economies of scale, reduce transaction costs, and improve competitiveness. The establishment of a single currency, like the proposed ECO for ECOWAS countries, could further enhance regional integration, allowing for a unified monetary and fiscal policy framework that helps stabilize economies and facilitate trade. A unified approach would also provide African countries with more bargaining power when negotiating with global financial institutions and investors. Governance reforms, the path to sustainable development. The path to sustainable development across Africa hinges on robust governance reforms. Good governance practices are necessary not just for ensuring efficient public resource management, but for attracting investment, enhancing social stability, and fostering long-term growth. Countries like Senegal, which are at the forefront of implementing fiscal reforms, must lead by example in promoting transparency, accountability, and citizen engagement. Improved governance will foster greater investor confidence, which in turn can spur job creation and economic growth. Investors are more likely to commit capital to nations that demonstrate a strong commitment to curb corruption, upholding the rule of law, and improving public sector efficiency. Senegal's government must continue to strengthen anti-corruption measures and promote openness in decision-making processes. The engagement of civil society in the formulation and implementation of economic policies is also crucial, as it ensures that the government remains accountable to its citizens and addresses their needs effectively. Moving forward, a vision for Africa's economic future. Senegal's fiscal misreporting crisis is a critical reminder of the ongoing challenges facing African economies, but it also offers an opportunity for countries on the continent to reassess their economic strategies. The IMF's role in Senegal's recovery process underscores the importance of international partnerships, but the country's long-term success will ultimately depend on its ability to implement comprehensive economic reforms that address fiscal transparency, improve governance, and foster economic diversification. Across Africa, similar challenges persist, but so do opportunities. With the right reforms, investment in human capital, and commitment to regional cooperation, African nations can overcome their fiscal difficulties and create a more prosperous, sustainable future. Senegal, with its rich resources, growing economy, and proactive governance, is poised to emerge as a leader in this transformative process. However, the road ahead requires continued dedication, collaboration, and a forward-looking approach to policymaking. By taking decisive action now, Africa can chart a course towards greater stability, inclusivity, and long-term economic prosperity. A new economic paradigm for Africa's future. The path forward for Senegal and Africa demands a shift towards a new economic paradigm. This paradigm must balance short-term recovery strategies with long-term, sustainable growth that is inclusive and resilient to external economic pressures. The continent's rich resources, youthful population, and emerging markets hold the potential for transformation, but realizing this potential requires structural reforms, visionary leadership, and a coordinated regional approach. The role of education and innovation in economic transformation. As Africa embraces its economic transformation, education will be at the core of its success. A continent rich in young talent, Africa must invest in quality education and skills development to harness the power of its demographic dividend. Educational reforms must focus on equipping students with the skills needed in a rapidly changing, globalized economy. For Senegal, a significant portion of the population is under the age of 30, and tapping into this potential will require more than just basic education. The government must invest in vocational training, STEM, science, technology, engineering, and mathematics, education, and entrepreneurship. The rapidly expanding digital economy offers an opportunity to align education with the future job market, ensuring that the workforce is not only numerically large, but also skilled, adaptable, and innovative. Senegal can also build on its thriving digital ecosystem to create partnerships between universities, tech startups, and international organizations. These partnerships can drive innovation and foster a new generation of entrepreneurs who can address both local and global challenges. Moreover, regional collaboration in educational initiatives can help African nations address common developmental hurdles, such as unemployment and poverty, and develop shared solutions to meet the needs of a growing continent. Diversifying the African economy. The role of green and digital sectors. As the world shifts towards sustainability and technological advancements, Africa is uniquely positioned to leverage its abundant natural resources and burgeoning digital industries. Senegal, with its investments in renewable energy, exemplifies how African nations can diversify their economies away from reliance on traditional industries such as agriculture and mining. The green economy, focusing on renewable energy, sustainable agriculture, and circular economies, presents a powerful growth opportunity for African nations. Senegal, specifically, has already shown progress in scaling up renewable energy projects. The West African nation boasts one of the continent's most ambitious solar energy programs, with solar capacity expected to grow significantly in the coming years. This not only promises to meet local energy demands, but also creates opportunities for Senegal to become a leader in the export of renewable energy within the region. The digital economy is another avenue for diversification. Africa's growing tech scene, with countries like Nigeria, Kenya, and South Africa leading the charge, is proving that technology can be an engine for economic growth. The increase in mobile penetration, the rise of e-commerce, and the growing interest in tech startups are all contributing to a vibrant digital ecosystem across the continent. For Senegal, embracing a digital-first approach could revolutionize sectors like agriculture, healthcare, and finance. Mobile money and e-commerce platforms have already seen explosive growth in Africa, and by harnessing these technologies, Senegal could enhance financial inclusion, improve access to essential services, and create new opportunities for entrepreneurship. Senegal could position itself as a digital hub, attracting international investment and providing scalable solutions to local and regional challenges. Global partnerships for development, a balanced approach. While domestic policies and reforms are essential, global partnerships will continue to play a significant role in Africa's development trajectory. As African nations like Senegal work to address fiscal challenges and diversify their economies, the international community must provide continued support. However, this support should be tailored to Africa's unique needs, moving beyond one-size-fits-all solutions to more flexible and country-specific approaches. Global institutions such as the World Bank, IMF, and the United Nations must align their development frameworks with the priorities of African nations. This means supporting economic diversification, enhancing infrastructure, fostering innovation, and building resilient institutions. In addition to financial aid, these institutions must facilitate the transfer of knowledge and best practices, particularly in the areas of governance, technology, and sustainable development. African countries, including Senegal, should also advocate for more favorable financing terms. The rise of green and impact investing, where funding is directed towards projects with environmental or social benefits, presents an opportunity for African nations to tap into global investment flows. This could be a key factor in financing infrastructure projects, renewable energy development, and tech innovations that could fuel long-term growth. A regional approach to economic growth and stability. Regional integration remains a crucial component of Africa's future economic success. Senegal, as part of both WAMU and ECOWAS, has an opportunity to engage in collaborative economic strategies that transcend national borders. By working together with neighboring countries, Senegal can help foster a regional economic bloc that facilitates trade, improves infrastructure, and supports policy coherence across the region. The African Continental Free Trade Area, AFCFTA, offers another critical opportunity to strengthen Africa's regional economic integration. By reducing trade barriers, harmonizing regulations, and boosting intra-Africa trade, AFCFTA can help African economies become more competitive on the global stage. Senegal's active participation in this regional framework will not only open up new markets for its businesses, but also allow the country to tap into the continent's growing consumer base, potentially boosting economic growth and job creation. Regional infrastructure projects, such as cross-border transport networks and energy grids, are also essential for increasing connectivity within Africa. Senegal could benefit from improved trade links with neighboring countries, which would reduce transportation costs and make its products more competitive in regional markets. Additionally, infrastructure improvements can support the movement of people, goods, and ideas across borders, creating a more integrated and prosperous African economy. Building resilient institutions for long-term growth. Lastly, strengthening Africa's institutions is key to ensuring that long-term economic growth is both sustainable and inclusive. Senegal's experience with fiscal misreporting highlights the need for robust institutions capable of ensuring transparency, accountability, and effective governance. Africa must invest in building institutions that not only enforce the rule of law, but also support the private sector, protect human rights, and promote social equity. Institutional reforms must prioritize strengthening democratic processes, reducing corruption, and ensuring that public resources are managed efficiently. African nations should focus on building effective public institutions that empower citizens, encourage investment, and create a conducive environment for both domestic and foreign businesses to thrive. It is only through strong, accountable institutions that Africa can achieve its long-term development goals and provide its people with the prosperity they deserve. The road ahead for Africa's economic transformation. Senegal's fiscal challenges and the broader issues faced by African nations provide a crucial learning opportunity for the continent. By focusing on diversification, technology, education, regional integration, and stronger institutions, Africa can chart a path toward sustainable economic growth that benefits all its citizens. The combined efforts of governments, the private sector, international partners, and civil society are essential to building a more resilient, prosperous Africa. As Senegal and its neighbors continue their journey of fiscal reform and economic diversification, the continent can look forward to a future that is more stable, inclusive, and capable of meeting the challenges and opportunities of the 21st century. By addressing the structural weaknesses in governance, investing in human capital, and leveraging regional and global partnerships, Africa can unlock its full potential, creating a brighter future for generations to come. Strengthening Africa's path to economic resilience. While regional and global cooperation are essential for Africa's economic growth, the key to long-term success lies in the continent's ability to adapt and evolve. The future of African economies will depend not just on managing debt and fiscal crises, but on developing robust strategies to build resilience against external shocks. This involves expanding Africa's economic base, developing more diversified sources of income, and leveraging innovation to create new opportunities in sectors that are sustainable and inclusive. Promoting financial inclusion and access to capital. Financial inclusion will play a critical role in transforming the economic landscape of Africa. With more than half of Africa's population still excluded from the formal financial system, particularly in rural areas, access to banking services and financial products is essential for fostering entrepreneurship and driving economic growth. Senegal, like many African countries, must continue to push for the expansion of banking services, mobile money platforms, and digital financial services to reach underserved populations. Mobile banking has proven to be a transformative force in financial inclusion across the continent. Mobile money platforms such as M-Pesa in Kenya and Orange Money in Senegal have revolutionized access to financial services for millions of Africans, enabling them to send money, save, and access credit with a simple mobile phone. As these platforms expand across the continent, they provide a foundation for economic empowerment by creating a pathway for small businesses to access capital, manage finances, and contribute to economic development. Governments and the private sector must work together to foster an ecosystem that encourages financial innovation and allows businesses, especially startups, to access the funding they need to scale. The expansion of microfinance institutions, digital credit platforms, and crowdfunding initiatives can further provide a solution for financing small and medium-sized enterprises, SMEs, which are crucial for job creation and poverty alleviation. Harnessing Africa's natural resources responsibly. Africa is home to some of the world's richest natural resources, including oil, gas, precious metals, and agricultural land. However, the challenge for many African nations, including Senegal, lies in ensuring that these resources are harnessed responsibly and equitably. For Africa to achieve sustainable development, it must implement policies that ensure the benefits of its natural resources are shared widely among its population, while also protecting the environment for future generations. Senegal's development of its oil and gas reserves offers a unique opportunity to accelerate the country's economic growth. The challenge will be to ensure that the revenues from these resources are managed effectively, invested in long-term infrastructure projects, and used to diversify the economy away from dependency on fossil fuels. To do this, Senegal will need to establish strong governance frameworks, anti-corruption measures, and a transparent legal system that holds companies accountable for their environmental and social impacts. Africa's extractive industries, including mining and oil extraction, must embrace practices that align with global sustainability standards. These include ensuring that local communities benefit from resource extraction through job creation, education, and infrastructure development. Moreover, African governments must push for greater control over the value chains of their natural resources, aiming to reduce the reliance on foreign companies for processing and refining. This strategy can generate more value locally and create jobs, thus accelerating industrialization in African countries. Building stronger institutional frameworks for sustainable growth. Institutional frameworks are the backbone of any country's economic system. Strong institutions facilitate the effective implementation of policies, enforce the rule of law, and create an environment conducive to business and investment. For Senegal and other African countries, building these frameworks is essential to ensure that economic reforms are sustainable and lead to long-term prosperity. This process starts with reforming the public sector to increase efficiency and reduce corruption. Transparency in government processes and public procurement must be enforced, ensuring that public resources are used for their intended purposes. In addition, enhancing the capacity of regulatory bodies to monitor and regulate sectors such as banking, construction, and energy can help to prevent abuse and ensure that development is aligned with national priorities. A key component of strengthening institutions is building trust with citizens. Governments must work to engage civil society and ensure that the voices of ordinary people are heard in the formulation of policies. By fostering an environment where citizens feel empowered to participate in decision-making, African governments can create policies that are more effective and better aligned with the needs of the population. Leveraging Africa's demographic dividend, Africa is experiencing the world's fastest-growing population, with its youth population expected to double by 2050. While this presents challenges, it also offers a significant opportunity. If properly harnessed, the demographic dividend could serve as a catalyst for economic growth and development. The challenge lies in ensuring that Africa's youth have access to quality education, employment opportunities, and a supportive environment to innovate and lead. Senegal, with its young and rapidly growing population, has the potential to tap into this demographic advantage. The key is to create a labor market that can absorb the growing number of young people entering the workforce. This can be achieved by investing in skills training, fostering entrepreneurship, and expanding the private sector, especially in industries such as technology, agriculture, and services. Governments must also provide an enabling environment that encourages innovation and supports small and medium-sized enterprises, SMEs. The youth of Africa are increasingly entrepreneurial, and by providing access to capital, mentorship, and markets, governments can help these young entrepreneurs turn ideas into successful businesses, thus contributing to job creation and economic stability. The role of African women in economic development. One of the most underutilized resources in Africa's development is its women. Women play a crucial role in Africa's economies, yet they remain underrepresented in formal economic activities. Empowering women is not only a moral imperative, but also an economic necessity. Senegal and other African nations must prioritize gender equality and empower women to fully participate in the economy by improving access to education, healthcare, and financial services. Studies have shown that when women are economically empowered, entire communities benefit. Women tend to invest more in their families and communities, and increasing women's participation in the workforce can lead to higher economic growth, better health outcomes, and improved social stability. As part of its broader economic strategy, Senegal must ensure that gender equality is woven into every aspect of its development agenda, from education and healthcare to employment and leadership positions. The path forward for Africa's economic revival. As Africa faces both internal and external challenges, The path to economic revival lies in its ability to capitalize on its strengths, its people, and its potential for innovation. Senegal, like many other African countries, stands at a crossroads where the decisions made today will determine the continent's future trajectory. Through strategic reforms, innovation, and regional cooperation, Africa can rise above its current challenges and build a resilient, diversified economy that benefits all its citizens. The journey toward prosperity will require strong leadership, transparent governance, and a commitment to inclusive growth. For Senegal and Africa as a whole, the future is filled with possibilities, and by focusing on education, innovation, financial inclusion, and sustainable development, African nations can unlock their full potential and secure a prosperous future for generations to come. The road to economic growth and stability may be long, but with determination, unity, and vision, Africa can overcome its challenges and emerge as a global leader in the 21st century. Africa's economic transformation and the role of leadership. At this pivotal moment in Africa's history, leadership plays a central role in determining the continent's economic trajectory. African leaders must recognize that the key to sustainable prosperity lies in embracing the principles of sound governance, transparency, and long-term strategic planning. To fully unlock Africa's potential, leaders must not only focus on economic growth, but also ensure that this growth is inclusive and equitable, benefiting all segments of society. Leadership is about making tough decisions that balance short-term needs with long-term goals. It is about putting the welfare of the people first, fostering a business environment that supports innovation, and creating policies that encourage investments in education, infrastructure, and technology. African leaders must also ensure that the public sector operates efficiently and that public resources are used responsibly without room for corruption or mismanagement. The process of economic transformation requires bold leadership, vision, and the ability to implement reforms that may not yield immediate results, but will pay off in the long run. Advice to African leaders. To African leaders, my advice is simple but powerful. Embrace the future with a long-term vision while taking decisive actions today. Your leadership will define the future of Africa, and the steps you take now will determine whether the continent becomes an economic powerhouse or continues to struggle with issues like debt, unemployment, and poverty. Start by fostering a culture of transparency and accountability. Governments must be open with their citizens, and the public must trust that their leaders are working in their best interests. Commit to reforms that will build robust institutions capable of ensuring economic growth and financial stability. Strengthen the rule of law and reduce corruption to create a climate where businesses can thrive and citizens feel secure in their future. Invest in Africa's most valuable resource, its people. This means investing in education and healthcare, ensuring access to skills training and creating job opportunities for the youth. A strong, educated workforce will be the foundation for economic success. Empower women to contribute to the workforce and actively participate in leadership roles, as this will lead to more balanced and sustainable growth. Furthermore, African leaders should prioritize regional cooperation and integration. Stronger economic partnerships within Africa will create a more resilient and competitive continent. Work together to develop infrastructure, harmonize regulations, and reduce trade barriers. A united Africa will be stronger on the global stage, able to negotiate better trade terms and attract more foreign investment. Summary of key messages. 1. Fiscal responsibility and transparency. African leaders must focus on improving fiscal governance, ensuring that public resources are managed responsibly and transparently. Reforms should prioritize institutional strength, accountability, and anti-corruption measures. 2. Economic diversification. To ensure sustainable growth, African countries need to diversify their economies. Senegal's investments in renewable energy and the digital economy provide a strong model for how to break away from reliance on a narrow set of industries. 3. Financial inclusion. Expanding access to financial services, particularly for underserved populations, will empower businesses and individuals to contribute to economic growth. Mobile banking and digital financial services are key tools in achieving this goal. 4. Education and innovation. Investing in education and vocational training, particularly in STEM fields, will prepare Africa's youth for the demands of the future job market. Supporting innovation hubs and fostering entrepreneurship are critical to driving economic transformation. 5. Regional integration and cooperation. African nations must work together to build stronger economic ties, reduce trade barriers, and invest in cross-border infrastructure. A united Africa will be more competitive globally and create opportunities for shared prosperity. 6. Sustainable resource management. Africa's wealth of natural resources must be harnessed responsibly. Extractive industries should prioritize sustainability, local community benefits, and fair revenue sharing to ensure that resource wealth translates into long-term development. 7. Leadership and governance. Strong leadership, rooted in good governance, transparency, and long-term vision, is critical for driving Africa's economic transformation. Leaders must prioritize the welfare of their citizens, ensure inclusive growth, and foster stability. Charting a prosperous future for Africa. The future of Africa is filled with promises, but realizing this potential requires dedicated leadership, bold decisions, and a commitment to long-term sustainability. The continent has the resources, the young population, and the potential to become a global economic leader. The key to unlocking this future lies in embracing reforms that foster transparency, financial inclusion, innovation, and regional cooperation. For African leaders, now is the time to act. The decisions made today will shape Africa's future. By investing in the people, strengthening institutions, and prioritizing economic diversification, Africa can overcome its current challenges and build a prosperous, stable, and sustainable future for generations to come. The journey will not be easy, but with vision, determination, and unity, Africa can rise to become an economic powerhouse, leading the world into a new era of growth and opportunity. Thank you for watching The Bold African Voice, BAV. Don't forget to like, comment, and share this video to help us spread the message. Make sure to subscribe and hit the notification bell to stay updated on our latest content. Join the conversation and let us know your thoughts on the IMF's role in Africa's economic future. Until next time, stay bold and stay informed.